All right, next question. My question is this. As a military man, what do you do if you cannot reconcile the orders that you're asked to do? I know that in your book you talk about believe the mission and how you must ask questions until you believe. What happens if after all the questions and all the explanations you don't agree or believe? What if the politics ask of you something you're not congruent with? How do you, as a military man, respond to your incongruency with the mission?
So this is a great question, and you know, it's kind of ties in with what we just read with the book review of Machete Season, how people were just doing. Some of them didn't believe in what they were doing; they did it anyways. Wrong answer. And it resulted in the death of the one guy, you know, you talk about, or that's in the book. But, you know, so first of all, as you stated in the question itself, if you don't agree with some mission that you've been given, then you have to ask the question why. And in the book, Extreme Ownership, we talk about that. The primary example is we talk about is working with Iraqi soldiers and how that's very challenging and very difficult and very dangerous. And the story that we tell in the book is that I said to myself, okay, why are they having us work with these Iraqi soldiers? My guys are going to be at risk, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually I realized why we needed to do this was because if we didn't get the Iraqi soldiers to a point where they could handle the security in Iraq, then who was going to do it? And the answer was us. So I understood why. Now, I actually didn't even have to ask anybody why. I figured that out. I asked myself why. And so I was able to come to that conclusion. But when you are part of something, whether it's in business or it's in war, the goal, the ultimate goal, it has to be aligned. And so, for example, we're in Iraq. We're supposed to use Iraqi soldiers. Okay, do you think that the generals wanted our men to be killed because of the higher risk? No. They wanted to win the war. They want to keep our guys safe. So that's what I wanted too. We want to win the war. We want to keep our guys safe. So that's aligned. So anything that they're telling me to do, it must be at some point in the distance aligned with the same goal that I have. And it's the same thing with a business. Do you think a boss of a business doesn't want to be profitable or doesn't want to be ethical? No. Somewhere in the future, they want to be profitable and they want to be ethical. And somewhere your mission is going to align with that. If those don't align at some point, then you got a real serious issue on your hands, right? Because maybe you're being told to do something that you just don't believe in. And you first, you know, like I said, you got to ask those questions all the way up. And if you do ask those questions all the way up and you still find, okay, I don't believe in this mission. Now you got to weigh out the consequences. Because, for instance, if there's an order that comes and for whatever reason you don't believe in it and you've asked the questions and you still don't believe that it's the right thing to do. But what if it's something that's like pretty inconsequential, right? Something that's no big deal and you say no to it. Like, I'm not going to do this. You decide to make your stand. Okay, well now you're first of all, you're not supporting the chain of command anymore. And if you're not supporting your chain of command anymore, how can you support the guys that work for you? Because now you might get removed. And if you get removed from the situation, now who's going to go execute it? Who's going to go do this thing that you thought was wrong? Now you're going to give it to somebody that might execute it in a harsher way, in a worse way, or you lose control of it. You've lost your influence. You've used up some of your political capital. You've impaired your reputation by saying, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't believe in it. Well, what was it? And by saying no, what did you accomplish? Because now you have no control over it anymore. You can't change it. You can't affect it anymore. So let me ask you this. This is an example. This will make it very clear what I'm trying to say because I don't think I'm being very clear right now. If you're playing a game, right? You're playing a football game or a basketball game and the ref makes a bad call. Okay, so you say, the ref made a bad call. I don't agree with this call. I quit. I'm walking off the court. Now, Does that make sense? I mean, how bad of a call was it? How did it affect the game? And furthermore, once you walk off the court, what good are you? Can you do better? Can you try and bring back the score? Can you try and show the ref that, yes, you are playing fair? Look, I'm a good guy. I'm keeping my head. I'm keeping my cool. No, you've thrown that all away. You've thrown that all away. And so what good is that? It's the same thing, not necessarily the ref, because that's sort of outside your chain of command. But what if your own coach? What if your coach pulls you out of a game? Or a coach calls a play for you to run a play that you didn't believe in. So you're going to say, you know what? I don't believe in that play. I'm walking off the field.
Right.
That's an exact correlation to this idea, right? This military order comes down that I don't believe in. Oh, I don't believe in it, so now I'm going to walk away.
Right.
So that is problematic because you've given up, you've surrendered your right to affect the situation. And that's not good. And in the military, there's all kinds of little, policy nuances that we might not believe in 100%. Little things. There might be little things that you go, you know what, I don't think that's the best way to do it, or I think there's a better way to do it. But if you walk away from it, now you can no longer affect it. And that is bad. So generally speaking, for most of these things, I dealt with it in the military all the time. Dealt with it all the time. And you know what? Generally speaking, you stay in the game.
Right.
So that you can still have an effect. You can still have influence. Now, that being said, there can be orders that are unlawful or unethical. That can happen, right? If you are in a bad situation, you're working for a bad commander, you're working for someone that's unethical, or whatever the case may be, maybe they're orders or plans that are tactically unsound to the point that you're afraid people are going to die. And in those situations, as we were going back to Napoleon's maxim again, if you execute something that you knew was wrong, you're culpable. So then it is time when you stand up and say, you know what? I'm not doing this. You want to send me to Leavenworth? You want to demote me? Demote me. Do it. But I do not believe in this, and here's why. So that is a time where you may have to say, after you weigh out the situation, how bad is it? Something that's unethical, unconstitutional, and you think you're going to have a bigger impact by protesting it, by possibly jeopardizing your career, or possibly going to Leavenworth if you're in the military, getting court-martialed. All those things could happen. If you think that it's so important and that you will have a better effect on it by making this protest, because that's what you're doing, you're now making a protest, then, okay, maybe that makes sense. So you got like the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, where horrible situation happens. And if you were a soldier that was there and said, you know what, I'm not doing this, stop. And maybe you do risk getting court-martialed. Maybe you risk getting killed. But that's a situation where maybe you do it, or maybe it's some mistreatment of civilians or something. But again, even with mistreatment of civilians, the U.S. military is not going to order the mistreatment of civilians. It's not going to happen. So if it is happening, it's coming from a rogue commander that you're going to be able to destroy when you bring this situation to the authorities or to the higher chain of command. So again, if you're getting wrapped up in some small nuanced thing.
Yeah, he mentions the political, like if you're not politically congruent with, I don't know if he meant that particularly.
Yeah, and again, when you're in the military, you're not there to worry about the politics of it. You're there to carry out the politics. You're there to carry out the policy. Now, if there's if the policy is egregious,
right.
If it's egregious and you think you will do better to make a protest and end up in jail and, be on CNN and Fox News and saying, hey, this is why I'm in jail because I didn't agree with what we were doing. If it's something that the rest of the nation is going to look at and say, yeah, this guy was right, of course. Yeah. But if you're doing it because it's something that is, in comparison to that, is something relatively small, then you're probably doing worse to help the situation. You're probably doing less good by walking away, getting off the field, and letting the situation transpire without your presence. I want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be there. If my guys were getting tasked with a mission that I thought was a little bit sketchy, I want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to be there. Not, hey, I protest, so I'm not going to go. Not a good call. So, yeah. And again, I'm not saying that you don't stand by your principles, but what I'm saying is, especially for this guy that's in the military, your principles should be, for the most part, in line. This is America. And if you're being told to do something that's un-American, then yeah, stand by your principles. But if it's something that's small and it's something that you just might not agree with 100%, that doesn't mean you're an unprincipled person. It means that you are losing the battle, but you're going to win the war.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Weigh it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Everything's not black and
like,
white.
hey, that bothers me. I'm jumping on the, on that side of things.